Hello and welcome to another episode of EdgeCraft. I'm your host, Matt, and it is great to see you today. Now, today is going to be the beginning of a very special project. If you live in the United States, you probably know that the Super Bowl is coming up this Sunday. And so I thought, in honor of the Super Bowl, I would build a football stadium. Well, at least a football field. I don't know if I'll get to build the stands or not. But this is going to be a huge project. And I have to do a lot of work to get ready for this. So today we're just going to be clearing out the area and starting the football field. So we're going to jump right into a super fast time mode because I'm going to build it right there behind me. You might kind of make it out, but this area right here is going to be the football field, and it is going to be massive. But what I need to do first is I need to flatten it because it's not flat right now. So that's step one. I need to flatten all this and probably fill in this ravine because I need 50 blocks across and 120 or so long. So this thing is going to be huge. So we're going to get started right away, and I'm going to get eyes in the sky on this, and we're going to get going. All right, see you in a minute. Okay, so in today's super fast time mode, we're actually going to do something a little bit different. We're going to have a very long story time. Basically, the entire episode today is going to be story time while you watch me build this football field as we level out the ground, fill it in with dirt, and then put the football field on top of it. So last time we were learning about David and Goliath. And in the last episode, we started the story, and we started talking about how Goliath was 9 feet 9 inches tall. This guy is humongous. He's carrying a spear, a javelin. He's got a guy carrying a shield for him. He's got weapons and armor. This guy is huge. Now, there's only 2 swords in all of the Israelite nation, and one of them is Saul's, King Saul's, and one of them is his son's, Jonathan's. And so they're all scared to death to go fight this guy. And by the way, the Philistines are a little bit scared of the Israelites because the Israelites killed them in the last battle. And so they sent out Goliath basically to scare and intimidate them into submission. Like, okay, well, they'll just give up and then we can be in charge of them again. No big deal. So we're going to start the story in 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 8. And we're going to read all about David and Goliath. All right, starting in verse 8. Goliath stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why do you come out and line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine, and are you not the servants of Saul? Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us." Then the Philistines said, "This day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other." On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and all the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. Now, David was the son of an Ephrathite named Jesse, who was from Bethlehem in Judah. Jesse had 8 sons, and in Saul's time he was very old. Jesse's 3 oldest sons had followed Saul to the war. The first one was Eliab, the second Abinadab, and the third Shammah. David was the youngest. The 3 oldest followed Saul, but David went back and forth from Saul to tend his father's sheep at Bethlehem. Okay, so let's pause there. Now remember, previously, David kind of works for King Saul, and used to play the lyre for him and things when the demons would come upon him and stuff like that. Well, since they've gone off to war, David's kind of gone back and is taking care of the sheep, and he's going back and forth from the battle lines to taking care of the sheep, basically helping out, doing favors for his dad and his brothers. But his 3 oldest brothers are there in the battle. David's too young, he's not there. All right, Verse 16. For 40 days the Philistine came forward every morning and evening and took his stand. Guys, this is 40 days. Oh my goodness, this is over a month. That's a long time. Can you see how the Philistines were kind of scared of the Israelites? They really, really wanted to intimidate them. Meanwhile, the Israelites, I mean, they've been standing there watching this for over a month now. This is crazy. Okay, verse 17. Now Jesse said to his son David, take this ephah of roasted grain and these 10 loaves of bread for your brothers, and hurry to their camp. Take along these 10 cheeses to the commander of their unit. See how your brothers are doing, and bring back some assurance from them. They are with Saul and all the men of Israel in the valley of Elah, fighting against the Philistines. Early in the morning, David left the flock in the care of a shepherd, loaded up, and set out, as Jesse had directed. He reached the camp as the army was going out to its battle positions, shouting the war cry. Now, wait a second, this is a little strange. He comes up on the army as they're going out into their battle positions and shouting their war cry, but they're basically just standing on a hill every single day hiding from this Goliath guy. Alright, anyway, verse 21. Israel and the Philistines were drawing up their lines facing each other. David left his things with the keeper of supplies, ran into the battle lines, and asked his brothers how they were. As he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion from Gath, stepped out from his lines and shouted his usual defiance. And David heard it. Whenever the Israelites saw the man, they all fled from him in great fear. Now the Israelites had been saying, do you see how this man keeps coming out? He comes out to defy Israel. The king will give great wealth to the man who kills him. He will also give him his daughter in marriage, and will exempt his family from taxes in Israel. David asked the man standing near him, what will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? They repeated to him what they had been saying and told him, this is what will be done for the man who kills him. When Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him speaking with the men, he burned with anger at him and asked, why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle. Alright, so here's what's going on. David's older brother is still probably a little bit jealous that David got anointed king and he didn't. Because, you know, it was kind of almost, if someone in the family was going to get anointed king, it should have been him. But remember, it's a secret. No one knows that David's been anointed yet. Now, you got David, who's this young boy coming down to a battlefield where he doesn't belong. He's asking a bunch of questions, and his older brother gets a little angry because David's acting a little bit cocky here. He's like, wait a second. You're saying if someone kills this guy, King Saul's going to reward him and give him his daughter in marriage? That sounds pretty interesting. Maybe I want to do that. And his older brother's like, no. You're a kid. You need to get out of here. All right. So let's keep going. Verse 29, this is David's response. Now what have I done? Said David. Can't I even speak? He then turned away to someone else and brought up the same matter. And the men answered him as before. What David said was overheard and reported to Saul, and Saul sent for him. Uh-oh. All right. So basically, David's going around asking the same question to a bunch of people like, wait a second, so you're saying that whoever kills this guy gets a bunch of stuff and gets to marry the king's daughter? Well, I can kill him. And right now, it kind of looks like David's just running his mouth and being a little bit arrogant. But some people hear it and they go tell King Saul. And so Saul says, well, David, go get this guy. Who is this guy? Bring him to me. So David goes to Saul, and in verse 32 he says, David said to Saul, let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him. Okay, now, David has just volunteered to go fight this 9'9" giant. I bet you everyone standing around is laughing. This is crazy. This kid's like 13 years old. Saul replied, "You are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." But David said to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." All right, so here's what's going on. Saul's like, "Listen, kid, you're too young. You're not going to go out and fight this guy. He will murder you." And David said, "Listen, don't underestimate me. I watched my father's sheep, and, a lion attacked them, and I killed that lion. A bear attacked, I killed the bear. And so if God can deliver me from a lion and a bear, he can certainly deliver me from this guy. Besides, God probably doesn't even like this guy. He's defying Israel, God's people. Don't worry about it. Let me go out there. I'll take care of this." So Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you." So Saul's kind of like, "All right, go ahead. You go fight." So verse 38, "Then Saul dressed David in his own tunic. He put a coat of armor on him and a bronze helmet on his head. David fastened on his sword over the tunic and tried walking around because he was not used to them. "I cannot go in these," he said to Saul, "because I am not used to them." So he took them off. Then he took his staff in his hand, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in his pouch of his shepherd's bag, and, with his sling in his hand, approached the Philistine. Okay, so here's what's going on. Saul says, "Well, if you're going to go out there, you might as well go with armor and my sword." So he gives him his sword, he gives him all those armor, a helmet, and David's like, this stuff's too heavy. I don't really need any of this. I don't even need the sword. You guys, you can keep it all. And he goes and he picks up 5 stones from a stream. Now this is interesting because he picks up 5 stones, and it doesn't really explain in this story why he picked up 5, but something we're going to learn later that I want you to kind of keep in mind is Goliath has 4 family members that are also giants like he is. They're a race of creature called Nephilim, and Goliath is one of them. And David only ends up using 1 stone in this battle, and he saves the other 4. And maybe that's foreshadowing or something, but basically what he's saying is, I'm not just going to kill this guy. I'm going to wipe out this entire species of giant, this creature that's been ravaging the earth. All right, so verse 41. "Meanwhile, the Philistine, with his shield bearer in front of him, kept coming closer to David. He looked David over and saw that he was little more than a boy, glowing with health and handsome, and he despised him. He said to David, 'Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?' And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. 'Come here,' he said, 'and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals.'" Okay. So now Goliath sees David. He sees that he's just a kid. And he's like, "Oh my goodness, this is crazy." And he sees that David doesn't even have a sword. He's coming at him with a staff, basically a big stick. He's like, "What am I, a dog? You bring a stick for me to play with? Come here. I'll kill you and I'll feed you to the birds and the animals." Now verse 45. David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. This very day I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know that it is not by the sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands." Wow. That was crazy. Those big words from David. I mean, he is serious. Verse 48. As the Philistine moved closer to attack him, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. Reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone. Without a sword in his hand, he struck down the Philistine and killed him. David ran and stood over him. He took hold of the Philistine's sword and drew it from its sheath. After he killed him, he cut off his head with the sword. When the Philistines saw that their hero was dead, they turned and ran. Then the men of Israel and Judah surged forward with a shout and pursued the Philistines to the entrance of Gath and to the gates of Ekron. Their dead were strewn along the Sharaim road to Gath and Ekron. When the Israelites returned from chasing the Philistines, they plundered their camp. David took the Philistines' head and brought it to Jerusalem. He put the Philistines' weapon in his own tent. As Saul watched David going out to meet the Philistine, he said to Abner, commander of the army, "Abner, whose son is that young man?" Abner replied, "As surely as you live, your majesty, I don't know." Now this is very strange because, of course, Saul knows David. He plays the lute or the lyre for him all the time. But, he's probably never seen him out on the battlefield. The king said, "Find out whose son this young man is." As soon as David returned from killing the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul, with David still holding the Philistine's head. "Whose son are you, young man?" Saul asked him. David said, "I am the son of your servant Jesse of Bethlehem." And that is the end of 1 Samuel chapter 17 and the story of David and Goliath. Now, the story continues. David's going to have some adventures here, and King Saul is going to go a little crazy. So stay tuned for future episodes, and we'll finish the rest of 1 Samuel. All right. Okay, so I know that was a bit of a strange episode, but check this out. This is what we wanted. We wanted a football field. Now, I'm sure you noticed, but I alternated between, let me see if I can fly on over, lime green concrete powder and green concrete powder, and then I used white concrete powder for the lines, and I think that gives it a nice kind of a gradient like the lawn got mowed. This took a ton of resources. I had to clear out like an entire desert and go into the nether and grab a whole bunch of gravel. But I'm really happy with the way this turned out. Now, we are not done yet. I said this was going to take multiple episodes, and it is. Because what I still want to do is I want to make these end zones a little bit more decorative. I want to make them unique to the different teams that are playing in the Super Bowl. We need some, of course, field goal posts up in this general area, so that, things like that can happen. And then, of course, I need to put little lines, like little tick marks lines, I don't know, like every couple yards or 5 yards or something, like you would have on a real football field, just so that, it looks a little bit better, because right now it looks a little bit plain and kind of boring. But not for long, because we're going to finish this in a future episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know it was a strange one. I hope you liked the story time. I will talk to you later. Bye. God bless.